Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the originals. So as we picked up from last week's episode, where we ended up seeing, the question is, who ended up being possessed by the Hollow? Was it Klaus? Was it Marcel? For me, I was like, okay, maybe it's not necessarily Klaus, just because maybe Hope was just dreaming that maybe that was something later on, but it's no, it got both of them. And so this thing kind of pulls a Silas thing, where it just kind of messes with people's head, and I find it so interesting. I always constantly reference Silas, and I think it's because he's probably, overall in the Vampire Diaries original universe, he's probably my favorite bad guy. Obviously you have certain characters like Klaus as well as Damon who kind of fall in the category of bad guys. They're more like anti-heroes, but still Silas is probably just my favorite, just being super powerful like he is. That makes it four altogether across all the series, four super powerful beings. The first one being Silas, second being Cade, obviously currently Marcel, as well as now the Hollow being four. Obviously the originals are kind of mixed in there too, but these are the top tier powerful things, because they're the things that could bring even the originals to their knees. That's why, the reason why I reference Silas, because of the whole getting inside of people's head thing, which this thing does obviously for both Marcel and Klaus. For Marcel, it represents, for both of them actually, it transforms into the person that they hate, and on some level, I guess, even fear the most. In his case, it's Elijah and Klaus for Marcel, and it makes sense because, for one, Elijah was someone that, Marcel kind of looked up to. He was the more calm, cool, collected one. Klaus is the one that kind of typically went off the handle and murdered anyone that was in his way. But it's also because Elijah was the one that actually killed him, and Klaus was like a father to him, a mentor, someone that he looked up to, that on multiple occasions, it's oh yeah, I can trust in Klaus, even though we have our problems. When the time came, we could work together, we could trust each other. Obviously that changed when Davina got killed, but still. So they're messing with his head, and on Klaus's side, it's his dad, Michael, the person that Klaus hated, and in some regards, once again, feared the most. And it's because obviously the Hollow can tap into your mind and everything, and it knows that Michael is probably who Klaus fears the most, because for him, obviously that's the reason Klaus became the monster that he is, because he grew up with a monster of a father like that. As we saw in a flashback scene, obviously it's kind of one that kind of keeps reflecting throughout the episode. It's him constantly calling Klaus a coward, because he's actually showing sympathy towards an enemy. It's this enemy would have came to kill us and pillage our village, and you were about to show this wounded person sympathy, you're about to show them mercy, you're weak, you're a coward. And just hearing that all his life being belittled by his father, treated like he was nothing more, obviously for multiple reasons, not only just because that wasn't his son per se, but just because, more so than anything, that's what he held the most animosity towards him for, was the fact that it's oh, you're not my son, is what that all came down to. What we ended up finding out in season 2, Freya was his favorite anyway, but nevertheless, that's not the point. The reason, it's because it knows that Klaus's deepest fear is the fact is that his daughter, Hope, will one day see him the way he sees his dad. So basically, this whole entire thing was it messing with their heads so that it could get them to fight each other, because it's one step closer to get into this world, but it needs a huge sacrifice. And it's why not take care of two of the most powerful beings that exist other than itself, Marcel and Klaus. It doesn't matter which one dies. If one of them dies, it will give it the power it needs to kind of have a full-on step into this world. So obviously, you have Marcel being more reluctant of it. He's fighting it, especially because he has someone like Sophia looking out for him and being no, you can't handle this on your own and everything. It's I got this dude named Dominic who's going to help and everything. Which at that moment I was that's kind of weird. The fact is that those beads are supposed to help him, and then they didn't work. I was okay, that's super suspicious. Oh, don't tell me So is Dominic in on this, or did he just underestimate the Saint's power? It's just I thought about it for a quick second, but I was so focused on the whole him and Marcel and Klaus fighting situation. But Marcel's I'm not going to do this thing's bidding. Elijah and Freya show up, and Elijah pushes Marcel away, but Marcel kind of is closing in, and he obviously, Michael's talking to Klaus in his head, do it, because the entire time, because the thing is, what he's afraid of most is because this thing, like, he ended up killing 3 innocent people because this thing was so far in his head that he ended up killing people because he thought he was just getting rid of this thing that was just kind of putting illusions. Like I said, like Silas, it can make you see and feel anything. So it could stab you and make you feel the pain like you were really stabbed, when in actuality it's nothing. It's just all mind games. So afraid that this thing might do the same thing to his daughter, get in her head like this, but more so than anything, turn him into a weapon against his family. Even made him see one of the bodies as Freya, and it's like he didn't want that to be, he didn't want to be a danger to his family, the people he cares about most. So that's why he was more willing to do it. But then, you know, when the last moment came, he dropped the knife and just snapped Marcel's neck. And we did get a glimpse at this thing. Not much of one, just like a shadowy outline of it. Obviously, we see the blue eyes, and it looks like it has long fingers and sharp nails. At first, what was crossing my mind is like, is this thing a werewolf or something? Especially because we ended up finding out from Mary that this thing has a long connection. Because basically, her husband is the one that killed Haley's parents, which Haley is kind of like, which actually puts things in perspective for Haley, because she's like, I did a lot of terrible things to find my family. One said thing was the whole like betraying, like there was that whole plan that Tyler had come up with back in the day where him and all the other hybrids would join together and defeat Klaus, stand against him. But Klaus found out ahead of time because Haley sold Tyler and the other hybrids out, and he massacred all of them. Tyler was like the only hybrid that was alive. So that's one mini example of just things that she kind of regretted in her life. And it's like she did all that to find her parents, not to find out they're dead. And now on top of that, the thing that killed her parents, which was actually Mary's husband, but he got controlled by the Hollow. So it's been there. It's had its grip into that area, but it's probably just like only like, you know, it hasn't had full control. Maybe it's slowly been working behind the scenes throughout everything, and no one never noticed, or, you know, maybe it's only until recently that it really got a real foothold in everything. Like before, it was always like far, far beyond the scenes to really act, but now, you know, given enough time, it's able to muster up enough power to kind of reach through to influence things in this world. And it started pointing something out to Haley, because she started looking through things. She's like, the fact is, a lot of people in my family are considered like unlucky. There's all these accidents and stuff that they died, like were killed and died. And she's like, what if it's not? What if it's not an accident? What if the Hollow's been behind my family's dying and everything? It's like, what if that's what this is all about? Why it's going after Holt specifically? Because it's trying to wipe out Haley's family. That's why I'm thinking, like, could it be like a you know, a rival werewolf pack or something, like some ancient older werewolf or something? But then again, it's like, no, like it gets later on described as a witch, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense with what it can do and everything. So it is a witch, but it's like, I think the reason why I automatically think wolf is because, like, you know, if you never watched the show Teen Wolf, obviously, like, blue eyes mean something. Obviously, like, I've talked about that before. I won't spoil it for you if you never watched Teen Wolf, because it's a very fascinating reason why werewolves have blue eyes. So I think instinctually there, I just automatically was like, oh, maybe, I don't know, like, maybe on some level I hope that it is. Like, obviously they're saying it is a witch, but I feel like it's much more than that. But I don't know, maybe that's not the case. Because also, going back to what I was bringing up before, like, you have, like, Klaus giving the blade over to Freya, being like, the blade that can actually kill Marcel. And she's like, okay, like, let me have it. He's like, maybe I shouldn't let you have it. She's like, what's the point of you keeping it? Because it's not like you're going to use it. You had the chance to kill Marcel, but you didn't. I mean, to be fair, it's like, it would have, in that particular case, I think Freya would have preferred it if he had killed Marcel, but even though at that time, obviously, it was a fake Freya saying, like, if it came down to you and Marcel, I hope, like, if you have to kill Marcel, then kill him. I don't want it to be you. Obviously, that was the Hollow getting in his head, but I still think that's something Freya would kind of believe. But in the circumstances, it's still a situation where it's like, you know, the fact is that she saw that he was reluctant to that. The fact is that he was able to throw the knife down like that, like, that he wasn't even 100%, that he was tempted, but he didn't, like, there wasn't like a point where like someone had to stop him. He of his own will stopped himself. So I think that's what kind of bothers her about it. So obviously, you know, you have, you know, Klaus saying something interesting, being like, oh, the fact is that a monopoly of power puts a target on your back is one reason why he was like, Freya, you shouldn't have this blade. Because he knows, as kind of top dog amongst the vampires, obviously, once again, there have been exceptions. You know, a lot of people have always had targets on his back. I mean, obviously, because of all the stuff he's done along with it, but also being at the top of the list when it comes to vampires and stuff. kind of makes you an exception too. So makes kind of an exception to that. But it's like, obviously this is going to put a target on her back, because like anyone that might have a problem with Marcel might, if they find out that Freya has a weapon that can kill him, especially because there's a lot of witches, definitely a lot of werewolves that have a problem with the fact is that Marcel's run things the way he has. Obviously we saw last episode with the reason why Laura started working with the Hollow in the first place was to get power to take back New Orleans, well, the quarter from, Marcel. And so if anyone finds out about that, they're definitely going to be coming after Freya, and especially like if anyone connected to Marcel finds out, oh, there's a weapon that can kill Marcel. Now we got to get that weapon away. Like, we can't have them taking out the boss man like that, something like that. Obviously, there was that very interesting conversation between Elijah and Marcel. Marcel's kind of locked up in the same place he held Klaus for those past 5 years. And Elijah's like, it's so interesting. I was presented the same situation that Klaus was. The fact is, I was forced to either kill you or lose everything that I care about. And he's like, obviously, I chose to kill you. Klaus had that same option and he didn't. And he's like, it's so fascinating. He's like, the fact is, Klaus has changed. He's not the same person. He's changing. And obviously, Marcel's not reluctant to believe it. He's like, no, he's not. It's like, he has. And he's like, the thing is, he's like, I used to look at you as the thing, that bit of redemption. You would be what could redeem Klaus, but it's no longer the case. The thing that can redeem him is hope, and it's already happening. He's changing, because obviously Klaus is saying like, oh, he saved Marcel because he's like, oh yeah, the fact is it was a strategy. He didn't do it out of like some need to care for Marcel or anything like that, which he can lie all he wants. We all know it's because you care for Marcel. No matter what happens, that is still like a son to you. He's still not like a son. He is your son, and it always will be, no matter what. So no matter how much problems you have, you will always love him in some shape or form. So obviously killing him won't be easy for you. And I'm sure Freya and Elijah kind of noticed that, especially because Elijah's like, yeah, you're Klaus's weakness, and I can't have, anything that could exist that jeopardizes my family. Even though Haley had that whole conversation with last episode, should we really do anything if it means protecting the family? I mean, in this case, it's hard to say how Haley would fall on it, because, like, obviously, like Marcel pointed out last episode, he's like, the fact is, I would never come after your baby. Hope was always off limits. But it's like, still, with what Marcel can do, he can literally wipe out the people that are Haley's family. So I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'd be very interested. Hopefully next episode we get an answer, like how she feels about the whole situation. But for Elijah, it's like, you're no longer necessary. I only kept you around because obviously Niklaus cares about you a lot. And the fact is, you could have been his redemption. Hope does that much better. Like, in the time he spent with Hope, he's changed a lot more for her sake. And so, why I no longer need you. So for everything, he's like, basically, Niklaus has you here kind of in some almost poetic justice. Obviously not like Elijah's it got worth, but, paraphrasing. So it's like, but the fact of the matter is, this is only the beginning. I will show you a nightmare that you have never seen before. It's like, wow. I guess more so than anything, it's because of everything that Marcel has ever done. Because of the fact is, because of him, Finn is dead. They ended up in the situation that they were in, that his brother was held captive and broken for 5 years because of him. So it's like, I'm going to make you pay for everything that you've ever done. So endless cycle, kind of going back and forth. And that's kind of how things run with the Michelsons. So. But the real twist that I like in the episode is finding out that Sophia is behind this too. The fact is that she's like, no. I was okay with Klaus becoming a part of this, but not Marcel. And then at the end, she's like, okay, I don't care what it is that because obviously Dominic's a part of this too. Bringing up the points, like, now it makes sense. Because like I said, it was in the middle of the fight. So I noticed that. I was like, he's seeing a fake Elijah. It's like, aren't those beats supposed to be, maybe they're faulty or maybe there's more to it. But I didn't really give it too much thought. But Dominic popping up at the end, it's like, you're part of this, aren't you? And so obviously for Sophia, she's getting revenge out of this. What that means exactly, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even, it's been a while since season 3. I don't actually remember the circumstances of her popping up in the show. I don't remember that at all. I'm sure she popped up last season. I don't think she's just introduced season 4. I swear she popped up in season 3, but I don't remember the circumstances. I think she was one of those people that gathered because of the whole Klaus on trial situation, especially after Marcel became what he was. I don't remember. If you do know, do refresh my brain in the comments down below, please. Because I wanted to know if her backstory came up last season and I'm just forgetting it. Because obviously she's talking about revenge in this. And so it's like, okay, is it revenge against the Michelsons? or is it Marcel? Because I'm like, oh, obviously she wants Marcel kept out of this because she loves him and actually cares for him. It's like she never wanted him mixed up in this. Like, that's why I gave you Klaus on a silver platter. I won't let you have Marcel. He wasn't part of the deal. Or is it because she wants Marcel left out of it because she wants her revenge on Marcel? Is there something he did in the past? Maybe that'll be kind of a situation where it'll probably put things in perspective for Marcel. He wants to pretend that Klaus is 100% the monster, but even Marcel has some skeletons in a closet, that he harbors some demons. Because, I mean, his greatest fear, honestly, is like he never wants to become like Klaus. I mean, I kind of forgot to bring that up. That's kind of one of the reasons why he saw Klaus, is because he admires Klaus. Klaus is his father, his mentor, but there's also a part of him that's afraid to ever become like him, especially being as powerful as he is now. Like, power kind of, absolute power corrupts absolutely, as the saying goes. So I'm very curious to see what that's all about. Like, which side is it? Does she care about Marcel, which you're kind of hoping for? Marcel deserves some love in his life, especially since things sadly didn't work out between him and Rebecca. You still kind of hope for that, just because there's always been that on and off. There's always been that flicker that they've always cared about each other for such a long time. Just things just don't work out the right way. So I mean, especially like when it came to wasn't that the second episode? Yeah, the second episode of the season, which was literally like 2 or 3 episodes ago. But nevertheless, even that like kind of showed, like, obviously she would have done something to Marcel, but at the same time I felt like Rebecca wouldn't have done anything because she cares about. I'm very curious to get back to their story, their side story too, like where Finn and Rebecca are, like what kind of life are they starting and what they're up to. I'm sure that's going to turn into something eventually. Obviously, they're probably keeping Rebecca and did I call him Finn? I meant Cole. I think I called him Finn. I meant Cole. Or what they're up to. Probably like everyone in New Orleans is probably keeping them up to date about what's going on. So, but they're probably all just doing their own thing. I'm very curious to see what that thing is. And obviously, at the end of it, they're going to be drawn back into this, because whatever this hollow thing really, obviously it wants to come back, but it's like, how did it end up where it is now? Is it something that the ancestors sealed away a long time ago? What this means with the whole Sophia situation. So, I mean, the point I was making earlier before I like literally went off on a tangent is, I hope that she does care for Marcel, and it isn't the situation of like, oh, she's just waiting for the opportunity to strike. Same thing with Keelan, and I said her name right this time. Her and Freya. Which we kind of see something building there, because even like there was a moment like, it's like, oh man, you forged the blade. Well, I guess I get to go back to my life, right? And Freya's like, yeah. She's like, yeah. And she's like, I mean, this was never like a friendship built to last or whatever. But she was able to leave. She was going to leave, but then she came back and stayed to try and help Freya. Which is like, hey, they're kind of, because last episode I proposed, I was like, is it something more? Is there something there, like kind of a spark? I don't know. I couldn't tell if I was reading too much into it, and I still can't tell if I'm reading too much into it. Even if it's not necessarily that much, there is still something there, because even if them being friends, even if they just stay friends, if they become something more interesting. Like I said, bringing up the fact is Freya's never had a significant other, not till I remember. I don't remember if I included this last episode. I might have cut it out, just because I was like, blah, blah. But I don't remember she's ever had a significant other throughout the series. Like, she's always been so focused on saving the family. But that's also what makes it interesting, if her and Keelan as friends, because she's never had friends either. Because she even brings it up to Freya. She's like, don't you kind of have any activities and stuff? Which she's like, oh yeah, I gather the ashes of my enemies and stuff like that. It's like, okay, but it's like she has no activities outside of protecting her family. She doesn't have any friends. She doesn't do anything other than protect her family. That's kind of her goal. I mean, like, I guess you could honestly say that brings the parallel. I mean, because even Klaus, even being the way he is, the paranoid person he's always been, Klaus has always had painting to be his thing. Not sure what Elijah's thing is. I would assume books, maybe? I don't know. Like, everyone has the thing except for Freya. Like, outside of the family, what does she have? I mean, I'm sure you break down all the other Michelsons, Haley included, because she's part of the Michelsons now. Like, I'm sure some of them probably don't have much outside of it, but definitely her, like, obviously, her entire life's been kind of laid out by her. Like, obviously, for most of her life, it was, connected to her aunt and everything. So now that she's kind of free of her aunt, she's still kind of bound to the Michelson family anyway. So this is going to be presenting an opportunity to kind of expand upon that. So, like I said, I'm very interested to see where it will go. Will it simply stay a friendship thing, or will it be much more? If it doesn't end up turning into much more, I won't be disappointed. I'm fine with her just having a friend. I want her to have a connection outside of the Michelson family. It's like, after everything she's done, all the time she's dedicated to her family, like, she deserves some happiness, And once again, I think I brought it up last episode too. I just hope we don't find out that Keelan is part of this too, that she is part of this whole situation, that she's actually waiting to strike. I mean, like, the thing is, that's what makes this whole thing crazy, because you don't know who could be on this thing's side. There's more obvious people who are very vocal about their connection to it, but there's other people like Sophia and obviously this Dominic dude who've kept their connections quiet. And also now that they've had, because of Marcel's blood being spilled, now they do have a weapon against the originals, which was kind of why I was like, oh, maybe Sophia's like actually going after the originals too, now that she has this. I mean, this also points to the fact is that because they had this, it gives them a weapon to kill one of them. And once one of them is dead, they'll have the sacrifice needed to bring the Hollow back to life, back to this reality. I'm very interested to see what this thing was. Obviously, when it comes back, it'll probably have like a human body. Either it'll possess someone, or it'll just come back in the body it originally had before it was sealed away. I'm very curious. Obviously, I'm very curious to see like who they end up getting cast for. Will it be someone I know? Will it not be? Very interested to see about that. So, overall, very good episode, presenting some very interesting developments. The question is Klaus? It seems like Klaus and Marcel might be completely clear of the Hollow. Maybe, maybe not. Never know. There might be some deep-seated residual stuff that we don't know about. But for now, it seems like they are clear. So there will not be an episode next week. The show is taking a week off, but it will be coming back on April 28th. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.